from different places, we all have different names. No matter what life brings us, Jesus is the same. We're just your Methodist to the madness. Methodist to the madness. Hi,
I'm Beth.
I'm Tim.
I'm Jessica, and we're just your everyday
Methodist to the madness.
Okie dokie. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, but there's been so many different things going on this week and weekend that it's kind of hard to put it all together into a summary sort of thing. So I guess I'll just list out all the different things that happened. So
yes, we want an itemized list of everything that has occurred in order of priority of your life.
Yeah, that sounds good. That kind of reminds me of when you're in a math class, they're talking about order of operations or something.
I wouldn't know. I was horrible at math. So thanks for teaching me something new, Tim.
Yeah, so the first thing that stands out regarding my week is there was something that I ate on 2 different days, and I should have figured it out the first day. So I had Chipotle, and I guess the chicken was too spicy or something. It tasted great, but the next day I felt absolutely terrible. I thought it was just not related to the food. Oh,
you got to check the news, Tim. You got to check the news. There's so many reports that come in about Chipotle and the dangers and threats it's put onto humankind. I'm telling you.
It's the biggest threat since romaine lettuce, Tim.
Totally. But okay, so too spicy. Yeah, so then that led to the next day.
Yeah, gotcha. So it was just bizarre because Tuesday I was sick. And then Thursday I was sick, and it was not a full on sickness to where I was like nauseated or something, but I felt like my stomach was off. So basically I think if something is too spicy, then it just throws my stomach off basically. So that was a strange occurrence in the week. But I was still able to get my work done and stuff. It just wasn't easy. On a lighter note, not talking about food sickness, I happened to see Jessica and Amber at the theater. They saw Wonka before I did, and that was a very pleasant surprise. What?
2 hours before.
Yeah.
They spoil everything for you?
No, they were very gracious and did not spoil the entire movie, tell me how it ended or anything like that.
I heard Willy Wonka dies. No, I haven't heard anything. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry if that actually happens in the movie. I haven't seen it, nor
we'll just have to fix it in post and
right.
Oh, so he does die.
Nobody's aware.
Okay,
because it's actually a prequel that talks about Willy Wonka's life.
Right.
So he probably doesn't die then if it's a prequel.
Oh, that's actually a good point. Yeah. And there's no way that Willy Wonka could die.
Right. Because I was like, why are they making another Willy Wonka movie? There's already 2, but if it's a prequel, that's a different story. Okay.
But it was so special. Tim, I'm curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. So
now that we're a movie podcast.
Yes. All we're talking about is movies in this podcast. Oh, I did want to mention though that if you do have a sequel or an original and then you have a prequel, you could call it an auto spoiler. In this prequel, this person doesn't die because he's in the original movie.
That's true. That's so true.
But yeah, I thought that the movie was really great because, well, for one thing, it's a standalone. So I would say that pretty much nobody would have to see the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie in order to see this movie. So you could just go in completely blind, not know anything about chocolate factories or anything like that, and watch Wonka and just get a really amazing experience. And
imagine if you had to know about chocolate factories before you go see a movie.
Here's everything you need to know about chocolate factories. FAQ.
I don't want to do homework before I go see a movie. I have to learn about chocolate factories.
I probably have to check the box that says DNR. I did not read about that.
Yeah, probably. So the big highlights for me were the main character was just like really witty and like fun to watch, and like all the different like ways in which he interacted with all of the other characters, and really all the characters were like gray. They were not black and white. That is, they just had colorful personalities. And I just thought that the story was very moving, and there was just a lot going on that was interesting. Like there really was not a dull moment in the entire movie. And so I'd say, yeah, it's a tearjerker, and it's got funny music. I didn't say it had funny music, but
it does have funny music.
It actually does have funny music. No, but it's got funny moments, and yeah, it's just it does everything right, I would say. So I would say that pretty much anybody would like this movie. Unless for some reason you don't like having a potential tear, or you don't like laughing,
or you don't like joy in general, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our guest. I'm just kidding.
No.
That's not true about our guest.
Actually, the Grinch would probably not like the movie because he doesn't like joy in general.
But his heart grew 3 times bigger by the end of the movie. So
that's right.
True. That is
indeed.
true.
Yeah. That was not a spoiler. I think everybody has seen the Grinch. Hopefully, if they have not,
I haven't seen it. Tim.
You
that
haven't?
book has been out.
What's the Grinch?
Which version are we
How would you
talking?
describe the Grinch in one word? What would you say?
Can you give me like 5 words?
No.
Oh
No, I said one word, Tim.
What about 3? I can give it to you in 3. Are you ready?
Okay, well, let's do 3. If you guys both have three words to describe the
Ready?
Grinch.
Okay. Stink, stink, stunk. That's my 3 words.
Christmas present stealer.
That sounds like, and I can answer that with one word: brother. That's what that is.
Brother?
No. Well, that sounds fun, Tim. I'm glad that you had a good week. So was that kind of a wrap up to
yeah, so just really quick. So some interesting things happened today. So I had like a pretty good day, I would say. I had to drive into work today, and right when I was going to go out to my car, after it had been raining a little bit, I saw a rainbow, and I thought that was so cool. I was really happy because last week I think we were talking about rainbows.
That's Beth's favorite color.
And then I would, yeah, exactly.
To make
And
a
then-
rainbow connection?
Yeah,
Yes.
the rainbow connection. Yeah. And then on my way home, driving home, I was listening to this song called Max Graham featuring Anna Criado. And the name of the song is Nothing Else Matters. And in that song, there's a lyric that said, fall into the sunlight, shadows disappear. And I think that's so cool because we've been talking about darkness for the last, this is the 3rd week now. And I thought it was an interesting coincidence that I was listening to that today. Now we're going to be talking about darkness again in this podcast. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Cover? Is that the same song?
Huh?
Is that the same song as the Metallica one?
I don't think so. No, it's just a trance song. I mean, I'm just like a full-on EDM, like Devo-D person that only listens to trance and psytrance and other electronica. So, that's a good song if anybody wants to listen to it. Nothing Else Matters, and then you just type in Anna Criado. Yeah, so that's my music recommendation for today too.
Awesome. Tim, you've got so many recommendations. I like to call them Rex for short. It's all the cool kids are saying nowadays.
Rex, yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of like things that the cool kids do, and we want to stay hip regarding what the cool kids are doing.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I help out with the youth with Pastor John is so I can stay cool. I got to know what's happening.
Yep. Gotta know.
Beth, how was your week though? I'm curious what's been going on.
Oh, there's been too much going on. but I'll start off with telling you some good news about Lucy. She told me this on Tuesday, so it was a day late for our podcast. But she went to see her oncologist on Tuesday, and the lump that she found in her breast, which made her get herself checked out in the first place, October, she's done 3 rounds of chemo, only 2 at that point on Tuesday, but she did her 3rd one on Wednesday. But after just those 2 rounds of chemo, she couldn't feel the lump anymore, and neither could her oncologist. So
wow.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. Oh my God.
How is she feeling? I mean, has she been feeling a little bit different now that she's gone through, I guess now 3 rounds of chemo? Is she doing okay?
I think she's doing okay. I don't really see her as much as I used to because all of her appointments are in the Valley, and that's where her boyfriend and her mom live, or his mom lives there.
Oh, okay.
And so she's just been, staying there to make it easier to go to her appointments. But I saw her last Saturday at a Christmas party, and she decided that she was going to do one thing that was under her control. And so she shaved her head, and I mean, she looks adorable. And yeah, so I think she's doing okay for now. So that's the Lucy update.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, Beth. That's awesome. And
then I've just had just this past weekend has been so busy. On Saturday, I went with Cynthia Hennessy, the former children's ministry director, to Neil, how do you say his name? Jean-Pierre, I think is how you say it. We went to his funeral, and I didn't really know him very well. But Cynthia offered to pick me up because we were going to go see the White Christmas musical at the LPAC after. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And now I kind of wish that I knew the guy and got to know him, because just listening to all the stories and all the things that people said about him, it seems like he was like a really great man of God. And not 1, not 2, but 3 people at his funeral said that they want to be like Neil when they grow up. So
that's so cool. I really like that.
All of them were pastors. Pastor Jim said it, and then he read a nice message that our former pastor, Pastor Angela, wrote to remember Neil, and she said it at the end of her message. And then Pastor John just jumped on the bandwagon and was like, I too want to be like Neil when I grow up. So I'm sad that I didn't get to know him, but I'm glad that I went, because it was kind of cool to get a glimpse into someone else's life and to listen to how he impacted other people's lives. So
that's really nice that you went to that was Neil's funeral, you said. And that's really nice that you did that, Beth. I'm really glad that you supported everyone, and you got to see Neil's life.
His wife died in 2008, and that's around the time he found the Palmdale United Methodist Church. And I guess they didn't have kids, and pretty much he had no other known family. And so Cynthia was telling me after that she was worried that not a lot of people were going to go. So I was glad that I could be another seat to fill. So, and then after that, we went to go see, the Larsons were there. Spoilers, one of our guests is a Larson, and we went to go see White Christmas and sat next to the Larsons at the LPAC. And it was such a good performance. I've only seen the movie, and I haven't really even seen the movie that much, but I really enjoyed it. There was tap dancing and singing and
Ooh.
Wow.
and one of my friends that I met through the theater who was the choreographer for the Joseph musical, her name is Robin Hawley. She did the choreography for Bye Bye Birdie and the Joseph musical and White Christmas. And so she's just been like doing show after show after show. And she said that she wasn't initially going to do the choreography for White Christmas, but she said that's her favorite type of dancing, like the tap dance and the jazz kind of style dancing. So, and
sometimes I was going to say, sometimes I find myself waking up and I tap dance as I'm waiting for my espresso to come out.
Really? Oh, man.
I get so excited. I'm like, dun, 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 dun. It's like a Broadway show waiting for this espresso to trickle out.
I don't have that energy until after the espresso enters my body, Jessica.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get very excited. Sometimes I just wake up that way, you know?
No,
Yeah.
I've never woken up that way.
I totally imagine that, Jessica, like for sure.
Cool.
So during the musical, I get a text from my friend Carrie reminding me that her church's dinner was that night, and did we want to go? And Jonah, who is my younger son, and he is very much that kid, like he knows what he wants, he knows what he doesn't want. So if he says no, he's firm on that. You're not going to change his mind. So, but when he says yes, that's when you got to jump in on it before he changes his mind. So I asked Jonah if he wanted to go, because it was my friend Carrie has a son named Gage, and he and Jonah have been best friends since kindergarten. So he was like, sure. So that was my Saturday. And then I feel like I lost my Sunday also, because we had choir and we sang a song that one of our choir members wrote. Chris, do you remember his last name?
Yeah, I forgot his last name.
He doesn't have a last name, remember?
He goes
He's
by
the only Chris.
Yeah, the only Chris in the choir. He made the arrangements and the accompaniment and wrote the song and wrote all 4 parts for it. And it was a really difficult song for us to learn. We didn't think we were going to be able to pull it off. And I did miss a couple notes here and there, but I feel like we got really good feedback from the audience, I guess.
Oh, wow.
I've never heard them clap so loud during any of our performances. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
We did it justice. So that was good. And then I got to, after Sunday school, I got to hang out with Jessica and Owen at youth group at Shakey's. And we shared some laughs. After that, there was the women's Christmas party at the White's house, and that was a lot of fun too.
Wow.
I got to hang out with Lourdes Serrano was there, Jessica and Amber were there, Margaret Wassner was there. I got to just hang out with a bunch of cool people. So
and like 40 other women.
Oh my goodness, it was so many. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like an awesome party.
This is the first Christmas party we've had since 2019. That was the last one we had because COVID ruined everything. So
yeah, seriously.
It was nice that we could all get together. And that's all I have. Jessica?
Oh.
Thanks for asking, Beth. And thanks for echoing that Tim asking how I was. So yes, I saw Tim at Wonka last Friday. We go to the old people times for movies, which is no later than 4 in the evening.
I would have preferred to go for that time, honestly, because
if I could go, by the time you guys were done, it was what, 8:30?
Yeah, no, I think it was like closer to 9 o'clock. Like I didn't
Oh my
even eat
gosh.
dinner yet, but I always eat late dinners. So
I got my
I'm all
jammies
messed up
on at
way.
that time, Tim. I'm ready to go to bed.
Wow, that's perfect.
Yeah, if I could go to like the matinee at like 12 or even like 11, that would be a great show.
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
think someone famous mentioned that they need to have, was it Diane Keaton? Or who was it that said that like concerts should start at like 12 in the afternoon?
I think that would be
like
way
7
better.
or 8 p.m. and then you get home at like 1 in the morning. It makes no sense. Anyways.
Like people just don't actually go to work after a
Yeah.
concert. Like, oh, work is canceled. You don't even
Yeah.
have to go.
Pretty much. But so yeah, we went to Wonka. But I did mention last week, so I had a lot of like doctor's appointments last week. All of those went really well. Everything's going well with my body.
Nice.
And so we're excited. I picked up our last vial last week. And so just doing a lot of testing this week. So for all those ladies who know what I'm talking about and all those partners out there who understand their spouses who have also experienced the testing and stuff, that's what I'm going through this week. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
What else? Christmas party, the women's Christmas party was so much fun. It was my first Christmas party with PUMC. So I was like, I got to get a really good gift for this gift exchange. And Amber was like, her like Southern side is like, you've got to get something else. Like, this is not like, I don't want to be silly. Like, you need to get something else. I think she was thinking of like Ray Dunn stuff from like Home Goods, like farmhouse vibe, that kind of stuff. I was like, no, we're going to get something. And she's like, okay. And it ended up being probably the best gift at the end, because it was one of the last gifts that was unwrapped, and it was my Tacosaurus taco holders. Those were like such a cool the best. Gift. And Dita got them, and so I'm sure Jacob's enjoying those. Probably Dita too. They probably are going to have Taco Tuesday and be all set for those Tacosaurus. So there was 2 of them. There was like I don't know the dinosaur names. Amber would know, but there was 2 of them though. So
2 different kinds of dinosaurs and
yes.
2 different kinds of colors.
That is correct. So very excited about that. A lot of good food. Lori obviously made an incredible cake with these really cool cone trees. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Chocolate peppermint.
It was like a Dr. Seuss cake or something?
No.
Cone trees?
I don't even know. Like, these trees were so magical. I don't know how she did the piping. She's got mad piping skills.
Whoa.
Like, for sure. Yeah. Buttercream was so good. Everything was good about it. But yeah, that was so much fun. But yeah, I feel like the holiday season, it's just so busy.
Yeah.
It's just like, I looked at Amber when I got home today. I was like, is it over yet? Like, I'm so tired. It's not even Christmas yet.
I feel like I almost forgot about recording this podcast tonight. So.
Oh my gosh. You could not.
Yeah, it's Monday. Better listen to that sermon.
I'm glad that this podcast is forcing you to listen to the sermon, because it is important. Well, speaking of important things, there's also a lot of stuff happening at the church that I want everybody to be aware of. And that's for Christmas Eve. Remember, there's a 9 a.m. only. There's not an 11 o'clock. The worship band is going to be helping lead worship at 9 a.m. And then for the evening, we have two different kinds of Christmas Eve services. There's one at 6 p.m., which is more of a family interactive kind of setting. And that's going to be in the social hall.
It's
and then for those, say again.
It's stellar VBS themed.
Okay, great.
That's great.
So there's going to be rocket ships to send baby Jesus to the stars.
to the
Oh, wait,
stars.
that's a different movie. So it's going to be pretty awesome. There's cookies and hot cocoa, right, Beth? Are there candy canes? Are there?
Of course, there will be candy canes.
Awesome. See this, I'm telling you, this sounds more, I might have to go to the 6 p.m.
Right.
And then there's
Yeah.
2 traditional services. One is at 6 p.m. in the sanctuary, and then there's another one at 7:30 p.m. So those
Nice.
are both the traditional. So if you want to be super Christian, you can go to the 6 p.m. family interactive in the social hall, and then you get bonus points for the condo suite in heaven going to the 7:30 p.m.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really up to you on how you want to live in heaven. You know. Anyway,
Yeah.
and then Wednesday. Go ahead, Tim.
Jessica, for those of you in the audience that were wondering about the Christmas pageant.
Yeah, there's somebody raising their hand again, Tim.
Yeah, there's so many interactions going on in the 6 o'clock interactive service that you'll feel that Christmas pageant spirit, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
And then don't forget Wednesdays, right? Food for thought, 5:30 p.m. Kids Club, and then from 6 to 7 in the social hall, you're going to have a blast. So keep in mind,
Also,
things.
there will be no food for thought the following week. In fact, the entire church office will be closed from Monday to Friday.
Next week.
That's not a joke, Tim. That's
Right. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing. You got to go back to serious mode here.
So next week, and like Beth said, so next week there's no kids club, no food for thought, and there will also not be a recorded podcast for next week. So please emotionally and mentally prepare yourselves for no podcast next week. So if you haven't listened to all of the episodes, or you haven't found us on any of the other platforms, this is your time to subscribe, like, I don't know what that means. I'll be at the end of the day. To be completely honest.
Subscribe,
guys.
Yeah. Share, follow, post, mail,
Owl.
horse by horse in mail. Yes.
Like horses and snail mail. That's what we're talking, right?
Follow the horses.
I do want to give a shout out for our podcast. We have a YouTube channel now. In case people want to look us up on YouTube, Methodists to the Madness. And if you hadn't looked us up before during that time that you're not waiting for a new episode, you can go on YouTube and see an episode that way.
And by seeing the sound waves go up and down on the screen.
Right, that's what I meant.
The sine waves will quickly go up around. Anyways, I feel like we've learned a lot about each other these past 30 minutes, but I want to get into the fun part of it, Beth, and I want to hear about your Beth's ministry moment. So it's all you, Beth.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Well, today we have a very special guest. I don't know if he refers to himself as a super fan, but his wife sure does. Whoops. I'm sorry. That's all the time we have today.
Drum roll, please. Yeah.
We previously had Kirsten Larson. She, I believe, was our second guest on the podcast.
Yeah.
We had her talking about the Scouts. Well, today we have her husband, superfan Nils. Welcome, Nils.
I believe I'm actually
Nils.
on the podcast.
Yay!
Oh my God.
Yay!
I'm so blessed. Yeah.
So if you wanted to tell us a little bit about how you started, unless you have a ministry to promote, if you don't, that's fine. You can tell us about how you ended up at Palmdale United Methodist Church.
Okay. Well, I was like Jessica, I was in the military. So I moved around a bunch, and over the years, I grew up in the church. I was like First Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, whatever. That was actually founded in my town. So, you could see from the house where I grew up, you could see the founder of the college and the religion, which was an offshoot of the Presbyterian Church, from, our house. Then in the military, I was, everything, Lutheran sometimes, Catholic sometimes, just kind of bounced around, whatever congregation I liked, it's kind of the one I went to. So,
right.
I was, Kirsten and I were back in Maryland, where we got married, and we were Lutheran at the time. When we met originally out here, I was going to a Catholic church. She was I wasn't Catholic. I just went to Catholic church. And she, was Lutheran, which is like Catholic light, kind of, sort of. And so I would go to her church most of the time. When we went to Maryland, we were Lutheran, came back and started shopping around, trying to figure out where we wanted to go to church. And so we tried her old Lutheran church, and it's kind of like Goldilocks, this one was too small. And then we went to, some other church, and it was too big. And, and it wasn't necessarily a denomination. We tried, a Presbyterian church and a Lutheran church, and just kind of going around bouncing to different churches. And then we went to Palmdale United Methodist, and it was when Pastor Jim 1.0 was the minister. And it was one of those where after we walked out, we went, that feels about right. So you're like, wasn't too big, wasn't too small. So, when, it's too small, sometimes you feel like the church is dying on you. If it's too big, you just feel lost and like no one knows you, but we looked at Palmdale, and we thought the size was right. They had a good outreach ministry. The other thing that was really good was, it was really diverse. And it was really just, you could feel the love, of the place. And, it wasn't real hard to figure out once we went there and went to, one service that, this is where we want to go. And that was a long time ago. I'm trying to think before kids. So, and, Cooper's 17. So.
Oh, wow.
That is so cool. I'm so glad you shared that. And I totally relate, like, to the just going to the church the first time and then just kind of feeling like it's the right church. That describes my experience for sure. I don't even think I watched Palmdale UMC online first. I think I just went first time in person, and I felt like I wanted to continue to go to the church. So that's amazing that you had an experience like that.
Well, both kids were baptized there. I mean, Cooper, when he was baptized, it was almost like the Lion King when he, hoisted him up over his head, kind of thing. We even have that picture somewhere. But it was very funny, back then, and I think everybody gave a good chuckle. But But to me, it's not just the pastors, the church. It's the whole church. Everybody. That the people next to you, the people across the church. It's one of those things that you really feel at home. So it's I've always of all the like I said, I went to a lot of different denominations. I grew up. From, when I could remember, I was Methodist for a while when I lived in Africa, when I was a kid. And it was, but this church is probably the most welcoming church that I've ever, been to. And it's not just the pastors, it's the congregation that really makes it.
Yeah. I can relate with being Lutheran. I grew up Lutheran. And so I do feel, and my dad's Catholic, my mom was Lutheran. So it was like, I would do Catholic services like every other weekend and holidays, and then, Lutheran churches every other time. And so I agree. I think Lutheran is like in between Methodists and Catholics, I believe. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's, having gone to Episcopal and, all kinds of stuff, it's really funny because the services were about the same order. When it came to it. So it was really interesting. And then you're like, okay, but so the person up front is married and the other one, they're not. And, there's some other things that were just a little bit different, but generally speaking, back then anyway, it's now since changed, but the order of worship was pretty much the same. It was, it was pretty comfortable, and depending on whether you're, ELCA or Missouri Synod or all the other kind of stuff that goes on there.
Right.
And I don't know enough about, the Lutheran Church to get into all that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So how did you end up finding the podcast and you can share as much positive things about it as you want. I know it's like a really big list, but what is it, that kind of drew you to the podcast?
Well, I think the biggest thing on the podcast was, it was announced in church. And so I figured, I'll check this out. And I think it was during, I try to walk every day, when Tim tries to share, some of the things that he's always trying to do just to keep healthy and that kind of stuff. I try to make sure that I move for at least 5 miles a day if I can pull that off. But, so frequently Kirsten and I will go walking together, or sometimes, I walk by myself. So it was, I'm like, well, sometimes listen to music or different podcasts, or maybe call my mom. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I'm like, hey, let me try, listen to the podcast. And it's really funny because, I've met each of you in different ways, but not together. So knowing each of you, I would not have necessarily put the three of you together for a podcast, so, I think Jessica, I met you first at the party. Beth, I've known you for, a few years. Tim, I've only known you for a short time, but it was really funny because I'm like, these are not three people I would have put together in a podcast, but dang, they're having some fun. So, and eventually we get to some of the other stuff, but it was one of those things that, we talked before about the congregation. You can feel the love. You can feel the love here, and, the joy that you guys are having just doing this, whether there's 10 people listening or 10 million people listening.
Which it's more towards the 10 million at this point,
that's awesome.
Yeah. We
smash that like
humble.
button.
Yeah. We're trying to stay humble for sure. It's hard though, because, Beth's, she gets sandwiches made for her. I get dinner brought to me. It's like, it's just part of the podcast hosting life, is you just have to go with it,
I think when I saw Tim, I see Beth and Tim more than I see you at church, since you go usually the later service. But I think, one of the days I like, oh my God, that's her. It's Beth, or it's Tim from Methodist to the Madness. Oh my God, it's them. Kind of thing, fanboying. Yeah.
Like you. Yeah. We're just regular people like you.
Yeah. Keep that in mind. Except you're probably like way smarter. Because what do you do for work, Nils, if you don't mind expanding a little bit?
I work at NASA. I'm a test pilot at NASA. So I work a couple buildings over from Tim. So, yeah.
See, exactly. We've got an awesome person with us today for anybody listening.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You don't want me testing any of that, but anyways, because I did intel when I was in the military, so there's nothing I could assist you with.
Were you in Korea, since you were talking about?
Yeah.
So I was operationally, I was a U-2 pilot. So I was in Korea, and probably, depending on whether you were, there at, Osan or wherever. Oh, actually,
I was in Yongsan. I was in a joint forces unit. So I was with all of the branches. We were, which, was a lot of fun when you get all of us in a room and we, you know.
I liked Korea when I was there. I mean, I was only there for, a couple of months. And at one point, I was either going back to Korea for a remote, or I was going to test pilot school, and obviously I ended up at test pilot school. So
Korea's fun. I was there for a little over a year, and it was like the greatest food experience I've ever had. I actually took Amber for some good Korean barbecue down in Koreatown. Actually, that was not this past Saturday, but the previous Saturday I went and took her, and she was like, "This is so good."
It is.
Yeah. If anybody is interested in what Korean barbecue is, treat yourself. That's all I got to say. And if you're into adult,
you need to like garlic. Make sure you like garlic.
Yeah.
I love Korean food. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do drink an adult beverage on occasion, and you're over the age, or you are 21 or older, soju is the drink of choice that you would want to try. But tread lightly. Do not overdo it.
Right. Indeed.
Anyway, it's so
but yeah, Nils, we could tell from your enthusiasm that you are the super fan for one of the many super fans that we have. But
I have to admit, I haven't listened to every episode, but I think almost all but probably one or two. Yeah,
okay. So, I really appreciate your kind words, and what stood out to me for sure is like when we go, like the three of us go onto this podcast. Yeah, we try to have a great time every time, and I'm so glad that it shows, and you're able to pick up on that. That's, I think, one of the goals of the podcast, to just like, if we're enjoying our time, then we imagine that people are enjoying it with us, but now we have actual proof of that. So that's
and
great
you
validation.
Can't help but not have a smile on your face with Beth's laugh, because it's
totally.
it's like the applause sign. If you're ever at a taping or something like that. So, I mean, whatever, I think the one time, Beth, when you were talking about, I think it was your dad or something that said, are you on there? You're going to be laughing a lot. Okay, then I'm going to listen, because it can't help but see, I do listen. See, there we go. I quote you guys. So, it helps, I mean, what a great idea for your dad. I mean, if he's having a down day, I'm going to go listen to the podcast. I'm going to hear my daughter laugh, and it's just going to make me smile. So, what a great idea. Yeah.
That is so
That's my favorite part about editing the audio at the end of these is I get to re-listen, and I'll take a video of all of us laughing, and I'll just send it to our group chat. And I'm like, guys, I can't get through this because I'm just laughing. So that's awesome. I'm so glad that everyone is enjoying that. But yes, Beth's laugh is very addicting to just join in.
My dad is going to be so excited that someone other than his daughter gave him a shout out.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Dad, I really have been meaning to talk to you about also being a guest on the podcast. So expect a text message from me soon.
Yeah.
Oh, before we move on, I just wanted to say, Nils, I like to think that you and Kathy Ankeny are tied for superfan status, but Kathy does have one up on you. She emailed us.
Oh, wow. Yeah. But I mean, I Kathy Ankeny, now that's some lofty, I can't believe I reached close to that kind of status.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive into some sermon feedback. Nils, would you do you have time to join us for some sermon?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, love to.
Wonderful. So this past Sunday, Pastor Jim went into his sermon series of God's holy darkness, dwelling in darkness. And he went through 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 1 through 13. And I've just been really enjoying this whole God's holy darkness theme. I don't know if you guys have, and I especially appreciated during the children's ministry moment this past Sunday, how he read from that book.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty cool. Not better than, world-renowned author Kirsten Larson, but it was really cool. This whole series about darkness, I think, is really, no pun intended, enlightening. And but Beth, you look like you're about to say something.
Just wanted to interject real quick and say, speaking of Kirsten Larson, world famous author, the fame hasn't changed her. Her book was one of the presents at the gift exchange at the women's party last night. And man, that was a well sought after book.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was the first gift that got locked because it got stolen 3 times.
Wow.
Amber was so sad. She's like, I just wanted the book, because she's a teacher. And so,
Right. Yeah. Well, I know the author. I might be able to hook her up.
yeah, I was going to say,
The author.
I think, that's great. I might have to reach out to the author and
Yes.
request for signed copies.
Yes. Put a ask on my behalf as well, if you would
Bring
be so
some money
kind.
on
Sure.
Thursday.
I don't want to brag, but I already have a signed copy.
Whatever, Beth. Let's just go into sermon feedback. But
Right, you're right. Sorry.
whatever.
I never get to brag about celebrities like you, Jessica. I haven't met Katy Perry.
Hey, flashback to a previous episode for anyone
Right.
listening.
Yep.
What were we talking about? Will Ferrell last night? What was that?
Sure.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, yep, because you met him too.
Anyways, so I'm curious how everybody's feedback is, though, on this past Sunday's sermon, the dwelling in the darkness, or dwelling in darkness. Tim?
So I have a few takeaways, and
Yes.
the first is I really liked how there was a connection between darkness and silence, and light and sound, basically. And I always sort of like thought about like sound and silence after I had, oh my God, I'm doing another music thing, but after I listened to this one Psytrance song, I'll have to get the name, but I don't know the name right now, but basically the song was talking about how with every sound, there are moments of silence. And he brought up how if you try to focus on the outer silence, the silence like outside of the sounds, then it can promote inner silence. And so anyway, what Pastor Jim was talking about reminded me of that like insight. And the other thing was I could totally relate to the frequencies thing that do you all remember that person's name who was talking about her experience in the cave of full-on darkness?
Barbara Brown Taylor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Her first name being Barbara. Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Her Barbie. Some people call her Barbie. They named a movie after her as well.
It's called Barbie Brown Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can totally relate to that experience of her being in total darkness and pretty much total silence, because I had gone to Hawaii a few years ago before the Lahaina fire, and I was in a completely silent, dark cave experience, and I noticed like this really, I didn't notice a high-pitched sound. Maybe there's just something there. Maybe it was like not completely silent. Maybe I was hearing vibrations from the cave, but I definitely heard a very low-pitched frequency. It was like it's really hard to describe. And I was thinking that maybe it was just like natural frequencies from the earth or something like that. So yeah, so I could totally relate to that whole experience, and I thought that was really nice. But then the really fascinating thing was when Barbara brought up the that little fragment of like a rock, basically, that you could shine a little like laser into it, and it will cause it to sparkle. And I think that really is powerful. Like I think in those moments of darkness, we have some light that comes in that like is so like inspirational or basically dazzling, to use that analogy. Then it kind of like is just amazing. And so without the darkness, we wouldn't be able to have that like appreciation for those little bits and or those little things of light, you could call it. So yeah, it's just a really impactful experience with this sermon. So thank you, Pastor Jim.
Yeah, and Barbie.
Yes, and Barbie. Yes.
Yes. Nils, any takeaways?
I like how he mentioned new life comes from the darkness. I thought that was interesting. My mind tends to wander as he talks about different things, and you try to apply things either to your life or things that have happened to you in your life. And one of the things that, as he was talking about, I think it was Arafel, he called it the darkness of God.
Yep.
And although this wasn't darkness per se, but it was similar. So once again, in the military, and I was at the Air Force Academy, and I believe it was my senior year. And we used to have a ceremony where they had all the graduates who had passed away in the last year. They would read out their names, and then someone in the squadron would yell out, "Absent, sir," or whatever. And it's really moving,
Yeah.
And so we're all lined up, all the squadrons, almost 4,000 of us sitting out there, and they're reading off the names. And as they do, the academy sits right up there near the mountains there in Colorado. So the fog starts rolling in from over the hills. And as it does, it starts to cover, all the squadrons to where eventually you can barely see the people standing next to you.
Wow.
Because the fog is that thick. You can't see the squadron next to you, and it's got that cool, little shiver going, and you just hear the name being called out in the distance, and the absent, sir, it was just really moving. And then at the very end, they play taps, but they have it at the buglers at two different locations. And so they do an echo when they do it. So, and as they do that, the fog starts to lift.
Wow.
And even to the point where when they finish, you can now see all the way across, if you've ever seen the Academy, all the way across the terrazzo, the skies open up. And, I'm getting chills now just thinking of the whole thing. And it was one of those things where when it was over and they dismissed us, it was like no one said us, not a sound, because you were like, did that just happen? And I can remember one of my friends go, "Yeah, tell me there's no God," or whatever. When you saw that, it was just one of those moments in your life when you just went, that was just amazing, And so to me, though it wasn't darkness because it was a gray fog, you still had the like you were talking about, all the senses were, some of the sounds were deadened and all that kind of stuff. But it reminded me, it was one of those things where you really did feel, you used to feel the presence of God in that ceremony no matter what. But that day, like I said, it was blatantly obvious. He was right, or he, she, whatever, was right there with us that day.
Yeah. That's so special. When it comes to anything regarding military and remembrance and all that, my gosh, I lose it. I can't focus. You know what I mean? I mean, I've lost friends that I served with through either just service or suicide. And it's so tough, but I think it's so special to remember, and how we remember those that we have lost so I think that's incredibly special.
Yeah.
Shared. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Beth?
So like I said earlier, I almost forgot about recording the podcast. I was laying down on the couch. It was like 4:45, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, there's an email from Jessica. Oh, that's the podcast. I was like, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And so I stayed laying on the couch, and then I just pulled up the sermon on my phone and I started watching it. And I was listening to Pastor Jim's story about how they went to Ruby Falls in, I think it was Tennessee. And then, but I also started to notice that I was probably going to fall asleep at any minute and inevitably miss the podcast entirely. So I was like, okay, I can't lay down anymore. And so I stopped laying down. I put the sermon on the TV, and then was listening to the service. And then he mentioned Ruby Falls again, like halfway through the service, or maybe towards the end. And for a second, I was like, Ruby Falls, why is that familiar to me? Oh, yeah, that's what I almost fell asleep to when I... So it was like sleep deprivation and ADHD just moving together.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what Pastor Jim was talking about earlier. But I really liked what he said. And I think Nils already said it, where life begins in the darkness.
Yeah.
As you've heard me talk about in previous podcasts, Jason Mraz put out a new album this year for my 40th birthday.
That's right. He emailed you to tell you that. Yeah.
I was like, hey, this is for your 40th birthday, but it's coming out on my 46th birthday. So I was like, that's fine. We can share it. And the first song is called Getting Started. And that's a song that I listen to like whenever I'm preparing for something really big, whether it be an event for the church or, just any like major and even minor life changes. And the song starts with them tuning their instruments, which just is all echoey and kind of cool. And I was like, oh, because they're getting started. They're getting ready for the song. And so I was like, that's clever.
Gotcha.
And then the first line, he says, there's always a moment before we start. It feels like we're still standing in the dark. And then he says, don't know where we're going, but because where we've been, I get the feeling that this isn't the end. And I think about just those two lines all the time, because even though we are in the dark when we're starting something new, we can still, because where we've been, we can still rely on our life experience and the things that we've already had happen to us to help us maneuver whatever is new for us in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Beth, because, that how a song brought that to you, because, the same thing, going back to the song that I brought up, that lyric, falling into sunlight, shadows disappear. Like, I was just kind of imagining, like, okay, so like all the darkness, like, can basically be represented as shadows, and those shadows will appear differently every single time. But then you fall into the sunlight causes all the shadows to disappear. But without the shadows, you don't have those particular depictions. Like sunlight, like in its purest sense, is just white. But when you have the darkness there, via shadows or however darkness is brought forth, then it creates basically the opportunity for a beautiful picture. And so that could be like actual pictures, or like the things that we experience in our lives, like those insights that are provided when we experience those dark moments. But then suddenly we have that light that comes in. It's like, okay, I wouldn't have saw it this way if I hadn't experienced that darkness.
Yeah. I saw a meme earlier. It came across my Facebook page, and it said, if you erased all of the mistakes you made, you would erase who you are as a person, or something like that.
Wow.
I just thought that was really cool, because we're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to like stumble along in the darkness until we figure it out, or someone helps us,
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciated that, the same thing that you kind of shared, Tim, about Barbie going into the cave. And when she mentioned something about the first time that they turned off their lights, she noticed a really weird sound. And Pastor Jim was saying it was the sound of her own body. And it made me think about, okay, let's look at this a step further from darkness, light. Okay, got it. Sound, what have you. Which, Tim, I thought you were going to mention a Simon and Garfunkel song, just so you're aware. Like,
I thought that was it. Yeah, I totally thought he was going there.
Yeah. If you haven't heard it, it's called Sound of Silence.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a little known. I mean, it's obscure. Maybe.
Yeah. Little people know about it. No. But Tim, if you haven't heard that song, I greatly encourage you to listen. I love Simon and Garfunkel. Anyways,
I'll definitely check it out. It's probably less obscure than my random Psytrance song that I.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we didn't sing that. As a hymn. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Whatever.
Come on.
Yeah, it would have been perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I immediately thought of when I think of, okay, when I'm able to kind of take away certain senses, and I think a lot of us can agree, when we take away certain senses from ourselves, we are heightened in other senses, right? So when you close your eyes, your hearing kind of expands a little bit more, or vice versa. When you not close your ears, because you can't necessarily close your ears, but when you cover your ears or you have like sound, blocking whatever headphones, noise canceling headphones, other things are kind of enhanced, and I was thinking of the parallels with our lives, where maybe if we get rid of the noise around us and the things that are potentially overstimulating our minds in terms of like social media, impatience, negativity, certain things like that, maybe there's more that God can reveal to us in those moments when we release those and we can focus in on the important senses in our lives, the things that God's trying to really teach us. And so that's kind of what I took away when I thought of, okay, turn the lights off. Okay, let's turn off the phone. Let's turn off the TV. Let's turn off the negativity from my life, and let me see what God can reveal in the darkness and bring light, the things that I need to hear and the things that I need to be more focused on. So that's really what
That's really good.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Jessica.
That's an awesome way to think of that. That was great. Maybe you should be a minister.
I was thinking about it. I figured I'd start here and then gain followers, and then we'd all drink orange juice with a concoction.
That started already. No.
I was going to say, in other words, you're trying to hear the sounds of silence?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jessica, I wanted to mention that I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I was kind of thinking along the same lines, but you basically were able to bring that to us, and that's a blessing.
It's very eloquent.
Yeah. What?
I said it was very eloquent.
Yeah.
The way she put it.
Yeah. You expressed that extremely well. It was awesome. But yeah, I was going to mention that I was kind of thinking along those same lines in terms of like basically cutting down the stimulation, or like we could even be in those moments like with God, kind of like referring to like God in his thick darkness. Speaking of which, this morning I was trying to get ready for the day. I mentioned that in a previous episode, how I just have problems with certain routines and stuff. And I was thinking about the sermon from the day before, and I came to the conclusion that maybe it would be a good idea for me to try to pray and maybe ask for God for strength and like guidance and so forth. And so I closed my eyes, and I was much more conscious of the fact that I was closing my eyes when I was praying to God. And that really helped me to kind of tune out everything that I was experiencing right then, and everything that I would normally be witnessing, because I cut off that one sense.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, we're just bombarded with so much like stimulation in this technological world that we live in, that I think the darkness could be represented as like the opportunity for inner silence, I guess, to use that word again. And then we can actually make wise choices for like our next steps in each moment.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our prayer requests for this week. Nils, I'm going to start with you because you are our super fan, and we want to focus all of our attention on you right now.
Yes.
In the military, you always have to have three main points. So I'll give you three things.
Okay.
So I thought Jessica would like that. One, and it's not really a concern, but I'd like to give thanks just for all the blessings that I and my family have had, and then all of us, that, we are truly blessed. I've lived in many other places in the world, and we all, that are listening to this podcast are some of the most blessed people on the earth. So I'd like to give thanks that, for all the blessings that we have, especially as we look at this in the season. Also, I'd like to, everybody that's traveling, there's a lot of people that are going to be traveling. So safe travels for everyone. And then finally, the third thing would be those that feel alone or lost. There's a lot of people this season that kind of run into that, but know that you are not alone. That somebody is always here, for you, that you are loved, especially at Palmdale United Methodist and any of the major churches and anything that's around here. And God is always with you. So you're never alone. And remember that. And, and the blessings, let's give thanks for the good news we heard this week with Lucy, and let's hope that we hear more of that in the future. But that would be my three main points.
Great.
That's really nice.
We don't
Thank
need
you.
any more prayer requests. You covered it all, Nils.
That was it.
All right, cut. That's a wrap. No.
Yep, we're done.
There you go. We have another cut. Woohoo.
Gotta go away now with my horse.
I'm still confused where the horse came from, but
It's
She has
fine.
a farm, no? Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, right. Perfect.
My chickens just sound like horses. It's fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. Tim, any prayer requests?
let's see. I think a prayer for me to have courage to reach out to God in those moments where I feel like I could use some strength or guidance or maybe wisdom, because I think that's really my core problem, where I'm just not reaching out to God when I really could. And so I feel like, you know, the word floundering, I always feel kind of funny, like using that word, because I think flounder is like a synonym for fish or something.
It's also from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, well, just imagine that's what I'm doing. Like I might be one of those fish or something.
Okay.
No, but
I'm a dog too, so
but yeah, basically, a prayer for me to reach out to God and ask for the things that I need to ask, so that I can make better decisions with my time. I've come up with lots of different ways in which I can go about like improving myself, but I think a really important starting point would be to pray to God. And also, a prayer for me to continue the meditation. That has been very helpful for me so far. I haven't really been able to do it daily, but in those opportunities when I can at least do it, it's been helpful. So yeah, and I want to chime in and say Neil's prayer was really nice about like the church and like blessings and everything like that. So I guess I want to mention as well that you are loved at Palmdale United Methodist Church, and it's just a blessing to be a part of this church, and I'll leave it at that.
Sounds good. Beth?
So first of all, I'm going to copy and paste everything that Nils and Tim said. His prayers are also my prayers now.
Command V. It's
Yep.
been pasted.
Ooh,
Nice.
very nice.
And I know that Christmas is coming and we're getting ready, but I am exhausted. There's so much going on, like and it's not and a lot of it's fun stuff. Like it's just there are so many events going on, and I'm not ready for Christmas to be over, but I'm just ready to get to that point of rest, which I think will happen after Christmas. So prayers that we can all make it through this busy season and be able to enjoy the things that are fun without being too tired to enjoy them, I guess. And secondly, I can't remember if I brought her up in my prayer request. I probably did. My friend Marlene who helped with the setup of the VBS. She is her son goes to a boarding school in LA called Seeds, and he goes Monday through Friday and then comes home on the weekends, but she's having a really hard time like with him leaving, and I think it's hard. She said it's harder because he comes back every weekend. Like if he maybe only came back for the holidays. I totally get what she means, because obviously I miss my mom and my dad and, you know, my family back in South Dakota and Colorado, but I don't often realize how much I miss them until I've spent time with them. And then I'm like, wow, I forgot like how nice this is. So I think it's just like that, but every weekend, you know? And so he'll be home for Christmas break, and she's actually also in the process of moving. She's moving from East Palmdale out of her in-laws' house to a place that's actually not too far from where we live right now. So, and she's just having a really hard time. She's been a mom since she was 17. She got pregnant with her first son when she was 17. And her son is also one of Jonah's friends that he's been friends with since kindergarten. And her kids are growing up and getting older and don't need her as much anymore. And she's been really just wishing that they were small again. I think she's kind of trying to figure out who she is outside of being a mom, because she puts her heart and soul into raising those kids. Everything she does for those kids. So just general prayers for her, for moving, and to maybe help her find, you know, something to, you know, further her identity from just being a mom.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure, Beth.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, Beth.
Jessica, Jessica, do you have any prayer requests? I forgot. I was totally going to do it, but then
no, it's kind of I think that's just part of our routine at this point. Is that
it pretty much is, yeah.
like
Says a super fan here. You know, I was gonna say something, but I'm like, well, you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I could have jumped in and said something too. So,
you know, a couple things. I'm going to mention a couple things that Amber wanted me to throw in, because rightfully so. One of her coworkers over in West Side Union, one of her coworkers this past week lost her husband in the night. They're thinking it was like a heart attack, so he passed away. And then she just found out that one of her coworkers, when she used to work in Burbank, one of her coworkers' dad passed away.
Oh my gosh.
She just found out about that. So it really makes me sad, because I do hear of a lot of people that, you know, unexpectedly or something happens. You know, I know there was like a mobile home, like a mile or something away from us. And they lost, like there was a fire, the whole thing just like is a total loss. So a lot of things have been kind of happening like that. So let's just pray for that to stop. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
But just, you know, to comfort the families that are experiencing any form of loss, that would be great. And then for me in particular, one, yes, survival of the holidays. That should be a t-shirt series. Survival. I survived holidays 2023. But you know what? I'm really looking forward to singing with Dawn this next Sunday morning. I have missed it. It's one of those things that I feel closer to God when I'm able to help lead worship with Dawn. It just makes me so happy. And I feel like I'm in the midst of this gray darkness where God is there with me and I get to just kind of rest. Whenever I'm singing, that's literally how I'm feeling. So it makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that this Sunday morning.
Do it beautifully, Jessica. You have a
Thanks.
beautiful.
Yeah. You do an awesome job up there with Dawn, Jessica.
Thanks,
Don's
Tim.
okay too, I guess.
What?
I said Don's okay too, I guess.
I suppose he's a leader for a reason.
No,
Apparently, I should come to the 11 o'clock more. So,
no, well, Don's got it going on. You know, he can sing all the hymns. He can play the band. He could play different instruments and everything. He leads the choir.
It's amazing. Yeah.
The temple choir, which I'm apparently a part of.
Yeah, I am apparently a part of the choir too. So we feel the same feeling that you just described,
Not
Jessica.
The choir, but the chancel choir.
Yes. But then lastly, it's this is an important week for us. As I've mentioned, we have one vial left with the donor that we're using. And guys, I want to be pregnant so bad. It would be so awesome if this could work. And I haven't really been vocal about it before because we've tried like 4 or 5 times previously since this past year. And it's just kind of like, you know what? It's in God's hands at this point. I feel like I can only do so much with my body. It is going to happen or it's not. But boy, I can talk about it and really hope that it can work this time. So,
hey, Jessica, something to keep in mind. Remember the Abraham and Sarah story.
I know, but you know what, Tim? I really don't want to be in my 80s. That would just be...
Well, that's one way to look at it.
That's fair, Jessica.
Yeah.
I was 42 when I had my first kid. So, that's not quite 80, but it's not 20.
See, and my mom had my half sisters when she was 38 and 39, and I'm 36. I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm proud of being 36. I love it. And so I think that's a pretty healthy age. I think that's like the new normal is to have children in your 30s and late 30s and early 40s. So I think Janet Jackson had a kid when she was like 50. So don't want to say I want to wait till then, but I think it's
God's timing.
Yes.
Well, and I'm so glad that you and Amber want to be parents because I think you guys will be phenomenal parents. So,
yeah.
So, it's funny because I didn't really realize all the stuff, but I remember I think I said to Kirsten, I said, who'd be really great parents?
Wonderful. I appreciate you saying that. I would like a baseball team. Don't know if I could afford it, but man, I would love to have 9 kids. I'd be, then it's like you retire. I figure that's what you have children for, is that way when you retire, they just start taking care of you.
That's serious Old Testament. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Right, because that's what Finley and Cooper are for, is like you want them to grow up to do something amazing because then you and Kirsten are like, sweet, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So anyway.
It's their turn to change my diaper.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the whole system, it's like
exactly. Yeah, circle of life, that whole Lion King. Yeah, there we go.
The life of a spoon. That's kind of how it is, right?
I'm going to put my food on the floor when I don't want it.
Yeah, exactly. Say no all the time.
But that works so well. They're bringing the spoon into this. It all makes sense now.
Yeah. Yep. Your spoon in the darkness. That's exactly what that is, Tim. Totally. And what are you, Tim? Are you a big spoon or a little spoon?
A big spoon, I think.
That's right. You're a big spoon, Tim. So anybody who's looking for an awesome male partner, Tim is a big spoon. He's ready. Just so everybody.
You didn't realize that this was a dating podcast.
Tim doesn't realize the whole reason we started this was to find him his soulmate. And this is where we're at. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Still waiting for that email, Tim.
Yeah.
You posted.
Wait, we got it from Kathy. I'll ask if she's interested.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ask Kathy. I'm sure. Anyway. Well, Nils, we so appreciate a couple things. One, we appreciate you taking time to hang out with us over this episode, our episode 15. And
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Nils.
And second, we appreciate your dedication to this world-renowned podcast. It seems that you follow along with world-renowned things, authors, podcasts. It's in your blood, man.
Exactly.
So we appreciate everybody who's listening, and we hope to talk to you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
The week after.
Yes.
Like the week after.
Yes, and please enjoy yourselves during the holidays.
We're all from different places, we all have different names. No matter what life brings us, Jesus is the same. We're just your Methodist to the madness. Methodist to the madness.